You want me to get the attention of your husband's Colorado? It's your funeral. So over the past few days, I've become friends with a retired Army officer that I'll call Belle. She's been delighting me with stories of her service, and she shared this wonderful story that I think you all will enjoy. Names and some details have been changed to protect the innocent. Belle was a young second LT at her first posting. As she put it, my college diploma hadn't even arrived in the mail and I was scared as hell. Fortunately, she got on the NCOS's good side and settled in pretty nicely. One afternoon, she was at work when in storms an officer's wife, looking like she was in the mood to cause hell. Belle keeps her head down, trying to stay busy when she hears the dreaded words, "I'm talking to you, soldier." Belle looked up and saw the woman, let's call her Karen because why not, standing in front of her. "Can I help you, ma'am?" Belle asked. "Yeah, I'm Major MaliciousCompliance's wife and I need to speak to Colonel Stone." "Do you have an appointment?" "He's busy," Belle asked. "Just go get him. I'll stand right here until you do." Belle looks around, wondering what the hell she's supposed to do. She didn't want to risk her job because Colonel Stone was known around the base for having a fierce temper. "I'll have you knocked back down to private if you don't do as I say," Karen shouts. "Now move." Quote, wanting to get away, Belle got up and walked towards the colonel's office, intending to get away for a long enough coffee break that Karen will forget. When she looked back, she sees Karen is watching her like a hawk. So there goes that plan. Colonel Stone's door is closed and Belle knocks on the door. "Yes?" Colonel Stone barked. "Sir, it's Second LT Belle Smith," she said. "Come in." Belle opens the door, does the customary salute, and he immediately notices how nervous she is. "What is it?" Quote, "Major MaliciousCompliance's wife is here and she wants to speak to you," Belle said, her voice squeaking. "Does she have an appointment?" Quote, "She just said to go get you and she wouldn't leave until you saw her." "I see. Did she threaten to knock you down to private?" Quote, "She did." Colonel Stone nodded and then said in a voice that scared Belle, "Send her in." Belle salutes and then goes back to Karen. Karen looks absolutely smug. "He'll see you now," Belle said. "See? Now that wasn't so hard, was it?" Karen said, strolling over to the colonel's office. It's at this point that a first sergeant named Sanders comes in. He just sits down and as the office door closes, he counts down in a low voice, 3, 2, 1. "What the hell were you thinking?" Colonel Stone shouted. For a good 5 minutes, he proceeded to tear Karen a new butthole, telling her that she isn't permitted to wear her husband's rank and that if she tries pulling anything like that ever again, her husband will be busted down to private faster than he could sneeze. Karen left the office, like a bat out of hell, white as a sheet and quaking. Belle never saw her again, but she and the major got divorced shortly afterwards. According to Belle, he realized what a liability she'd be to his career. As a Navy brat, I have heard all about spouses assuming their husband's rank. Dependopotamus is one of the nicer things I have heard them called. Steve Irwin's voice. "Ah, today I see that we've come across a dependopotamus in her natural habitat. Unfortunately, this is not an isolated event. There are way too many officers' wives that have the mistaken belief that they have the same rank and authority as their husbands." "Oh, yes. Thank you for your cervix, ma'am. Our malicious compliance might like this. Maybe our military stories. It would have been rude and unprofessional for the person with credentials to behave this way, let alone someone without them. Thank goodness for divorce." "Control your dependence" was a very common phrase when my husband was in Looks like the major controlled her straight out of Dependopotamusland. Probably after a dressing down by the colonel and hearing said phrase. My father was a career soldier. I never knew what he did or what his rank was. People like that are so ridiculous. Despite what these dependas have come to believe, rank is not sexually transmitted. Always fun to read stories of military spouses learning just how the military works. The son of one of my college pals is an officer in the Army. The last time I saw him and his wife, I was talking to her about life as a captain's wife. She said one of the first things he told her after they got engaged, when he was a first lieutenant, was, "You're marrying Greg, not L.T. Jones." Apparently, she understood. She's a first-class young woman, married to a great young man who's now a major. Being a military spouse is hard, being a stupid one is even harder. I married into the Army, and even before the wedding I spoke with a Navy officer's wife who was the daughter of friends of my family. She told me about rule number 1. As a spouse you hold no rank, so don't ever try to assume your husband's rank, as that will get you nothing but trouble. My Mill, who had been a World War II camp follower until my Phil was sent to England to prepare for D-Day, told me the same thing. Even the section in the Officer's Guide for Spouses admonished against thinking that as a civilian dependent you had any rank at all, because you don't. I guess I was lucky in the 22 years I was a camp follower. I never met an officer's wife who tried to pull rank on someone. I had heard stories of this happening, of course, but never saw it myself. You should try dealing with ambassadors as partners. Entitled to Beyond Fault was once questioned by a low-level ambassador's wife why her husband had to waste his time dealing with my official trip to this non-existent country. "Ma'am," I replied, "I am but a lowly government functionary. I go where they send me. I do what they tell me to do. If you have an issue with the ambassador's tasking, you should take that up with his superiors." Ambassador winked at me, lol. Guess he was used to his wife's self-assumed status. Another deputy ambassador's wife delivered the most racist monologue I have ever heard, and sat there triumphant in her righteousness whilst everyone around the dinner table sat there in stunned disbelief. She mistaking our shock for acquiescence. Deputy ambassador ended that dinner pretty quickly. I'm a vet and now an active duty spouse. I just agreed to take over the FB group for the spouses of his new command. I'm just waiting for dependas to start freaking out about thinks and trying to throw rank that isn't theirs. Damned dependopotamus, always trying to wear their spouse's rank. Are just dependa things. I'm so glad I did not live with my husband after we got married. It was his last enlistment. Army. So we just bit the bullet and had a long-distance marriage for 2.5 years. He even moved off post to a studio apartment. Back in the early 60s, when I was about 6 and my dad was in the Air Force, my mom took me and my sister, 1 year old, to the Xmas party for my dad's unit. We were met at the door by an officer's wife, and mom was told the party was for officers' kids only. I learned years ago that civilians equate themselves to officer level, and the richer and more powerful they are, the higher their imaginary rank. Military personnel rate civilians as slightly less than the guard dogs. At least the guard dogs serves.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Aircast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.